Today I'd like to take a chance to talk to you about our writing focus for our week 1 DWA, the name writing. And our writing focus this week is building syntax using noun, verbs, adverbial, and adjectival phrases in order to mix up our syntax. So we're going to talk about a couple different important definitions here as far as grammar goes. The first of which is a phrase. Okay, a phrase is a small groups of words that stand together, as a conceptual unit that typically form a component of a clause. So examples of a phrase are the dog, as I ate, running quickly, like a lion, on the hill, eating a ham sandwich. You can see all of those there. Well, not all phrases are created equal, but phrases combined together generally make complete sentences in the English language. For example, one type of phrase is that of noun phrases. A noun phrase includes a noun and the modifiers that belong for it. Typically in English, our sentence structures start with noun phrases. For example, I went. The noun phrase is I there. Okay. So if we look down here, some examples: the lion, the Empire State Building, which should be capitalized, Mr. Jernigan, Tennessee, Bill, the goat, my brown bear. All of those things are examples of noun phrases. It's important to understand that any modifiers or adjectives that modify the noun are also part of the noun phrase. Now let's move on to talk about verb phrases. A verb phrase is a phrase that contains the verb of a sentence but not the noun. We generally don't start our sentences with verb phrases unless we're asking a question or issuing a command. Verb phrases are often just one word, but they can be multiple words if it's a helping verb with a main verb involved. Some examples are words that we may not think of as action words, but things like is, are, am, was, were. Also, maybe words that we visualize a little bit more as action-based, things like run, eat, throw. We also have helping verbs here like are, going, is, eating. Okay, and those are examples of verb phrases. Adverbial phrases are based on the definition of an adverb, which is a word that tells us how, when, or why, or not, sorry, how, when, or where an action was done, where a verb happened, how a verb happened, or when it happened. It can be done in one word, and it can also be multiple words. Some adverbial phrases, it's important to understand that we think of adverbs mostly as telling us how a verb is done, but how includes where and when. Okay? So, for example, we have here words like quickly, the ly words, those are adverbial phrases. In a hurry, after lunch, around the corner, angrily, intelligently. Those are examples of adverbial phrases. Adjectival phrases are phrases that describe a noun. They can often be used to help flesh out a full picture of the noun. Some adjectival phrases might come right before the noun, for example, the sleepy dog eats, while others might show up after the verb that belongs to the noun. For example, the dog was sleepy. So some examples of that would be words like fast, blue, red, green-haired, fun-loving, tall, big, and happy. You notice these hyphenated ones, adjectives, are kind of different, and that's a good way to really paint a picture for your author. So how do we use phrases to create flow in our syntax? Syntax is just a big word for sentence structure. Our typical English sentence structure goes in this order. We have a noun phrase plus a verb phrase plus a completeness of thought, and that equals a full sentence. Well, if we can mix up and change that pacing of our writing, it will improve its readability. Our readers will generally enjoy it a little bit more. Instead of having the da of noun verb complete thought, noun verb complete thought, noun verb complete thought, we'll now have some different sentence structures that will help create some flow in our paper and mix up the syntax and make it a much more pleasant and complex read. As we flow down here, one could possibly add in adverbial and adjectival phrases to modify sentence structure and flow. It's important to understand that when we use adverbial phrases and adjectival phrases, we need to make sure we offset them with a comma that leads into the main noun of the sentence. So for example, if I start a sentence with a noun phrase, I can say something like, I ate breakfast. Okay. I could also start it with a verb phrase, something like, did you eat breakfast? Did and eat becomes the verb phrase there. You becomes the noun phrase. So it's important to understand that those are different ways. You could also start it with a verb phrase if you were to say, eat breakfast, and you commanded somebody to do that with an understood you. Another way that we can do it is to add an adverbial phrase out front. It's important to note once again that the comma must follow the adverbial phrase. So here we have quickly and sloppily, which is an adverbial phrase, comma, Bill slurped up his dinner. How did he do it? Well, he did it quickly and sloppily. We could also use things like, on Monday, Bill slurped up his dinner. That tells us when he did it, so that's an adverbial phrase as well. Finally, let's talk about adjectival phrases. A sentence that starts with an adjectival phrase also needs to be set off with a comma unless the adjectival phrase is followed by the. So for example, the big brown bear obviously doesn't need a comma there, or a big brown bear doesn't need a comma. However, we can play with it and be a little bit more artistic. We can do some things like, for example, a giant turtle woman, Jen, peeked her head out from under the blanket. Or in this case, we could do this one, the big brown dog licked Amy's face. Now we've got an adjective phrase right here, but we don't need a comma to set it off from dog because of the fact that we have the before it. In this case, we don't have that completeness here. We've got here, so we don't necessarily we could possibly get away from it, but we're basically making a metaphor for what Jen is. So in this case, we're not going to use the comma. Okay, or we are going to use the comma. I apologize. In order to get credit for this on your paper, you need to employ at least one sentence of each of these types. Now, you're probably going to employ a lot that start with a noun phrase. Employing ones that start with verb phrases are a little bit harder. Adverbial phrases can be hard as well, and as well as adjectival. So just do your best. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to me and we'll figure it out. Okay, thank you.